1.
Hello, U.S. history students. Mr. Deegan, back at it. It's 11:3 vid notes. Let's start. First, the learning target. Write this down. I will understand the role of the U.S. Supreme Court in shaping U.S. history. And here is the logo of the most powerful court in the country. Summary, part 1. The membership of the U.S. Supreme Court has changed to become more diverse over time. These are the current Supreme Court justices, as they're called. You see a black man, you see women. It's no longer only white men, and that's a good thing. Although this question mark here, President Trump recently nominated Neil Gorsuch to fill a spot that was empty when one of the justices died. So he is the most current member of the Supreme Court. Summary, part 2. The decisions of the U.S. Supreme Court have expanded individual rights in the years since Brown versus the Board of Education of Topeka, Kansas, which was decided in 1954. What individual rights? Well, the freedom of expression, the freedom to criticize your government, the freedom of religion. That's important, and the Supreme Court has made sure that people get their rights. A more diverse court, as we talked about. The membership of the U.S. Supreme Court has included women and minorities, such as Sandra Day O'Connor, here she is, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, here she is, and Clarence Thomas, here he is. Ginsburg and Thomas are still on the court. The civil rights movement and law. America's civil rights movement of the 1940s, 50s, and 60s provided a model that other groups used to extend civil rights and promote equal justice. And here you see a group of peaceful protesters during the civil rights movement. What were they fighting for? Equality for all people under the law. The duties of the Supreme Court. What's their job? The U.S. Supreme Court protects the individual rights enumerated, meaning listed, in the Constitution of the U.S. And the Bill of Rights are those first 10 amendments to the Constitution, and they include the right of freedom of speech and peaceful assembly, the right to bear arms, the right to arrests and searches, make sure there's a search warrant the police has before they're allowed to search your things, your house. So the Supreme Court, their job is to make sure people get their rights. That is explained in the Bill of Rights. Speaking of rights, privacy rights, which are becoming more important today in the digital age. The U.S. Supreme Court uses the U.S. Constitution to decide how an individual's right to privacy is protected from government interference. In today's digital age, the court makes decisions on whether the government can read a person's text messages or emails. Can the government do that? What if they're trying to protect us? What if it's a dangerous person? Or is this all private? Is your text message a private thing that no one should see? That's the question right now. And the Supreme Court is starting to make decisions about these issues. Limiting power. The U.S. Supreme Court, of course, is one of the branches of the government, the judicial branch, and its job is to invalidate or cancel laws and the executive branch is the presidential branch, actions that the justices agree exceed the authority granted to government officials, go beyond what their power is. And who decides that power? The Constitution of the U.S. And one important recent case was the same-sex marriage decision the Supreme Court made that said all courts in the U.S. should recognize the marriage of gay couples. All courts should be legally obligated to recognize that marriage. And that was a step forward for equality. That's it until your summary questions. Please write 2 summary questions worth 3 points. Also, there's an 11-3 Canvas quiz waiting for you. And when you're done with those 2 things, you are done with 11-3. Until next time, this is Mr. Deegan signing off.